Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher, a very fantastic episode with a lot of interesting developments. Obviously, the biggest thing we'll talk off right off the bat is the fact is that we meet Viktor for the first time, and I feel like such an asshole because I recognize that actor because he's one of those actors you never know their name, but you always see them pop up and stuff. And I've seen him in plenty of stuff. The actor who plays Viktor, but I don't know his name, and I feel like such a piece of shit for that. But we finally get to meet Viktor, and constantly, it's not something I really noticed until this episode. I mean, obviously, the way she's been dodging him ahead of time, kind of being nervous to be in the same area as him. I was like, Tulip is actually scared of this guy, and the fact of the matter is, we've never really seen Tulip afraid before, because she's a tough badass that she is, so she's never seen her afraid. But you see her standing in front of this guy, she's gulping and just looking terrified. Part of me was wondering, is that's real, isn't it? Then she starts doing the tears. I'm like, that's not. No, it's like, is that real? It's like, no, obviously she's kind of doing crocodile tears. The moment he walks away, she starts cleaning off her face. So kind of doing her whole thing, with the whole vet situation, or trying to pull on his heartstrings and stuff like that. Who we used to be and everything. Come on, Viktor. But apparently, I mean, obviously that didn't work. But it makes you wonder, is acting afraid thing? The fact that she would go to such extent made me kind of think, that I don't know, because the fact is, it shows you she's not necessarily afraid, since she went through the trouble of confronting him, letting herself get captured, being out in the open like that last episode. But then it's I don't know, it makes you wonder, you could tell some of it was fake, but it's not easy to tell whether all of it was or not. I mean, the entire place, everyone in the facility, she's calling people out, and it's yo, hey, don't play cards with this guy, he'll take all your, oh, you're ignoring me. Everyone gives her the cold shoulder, isn't talking to her. Even Viktor's daughter, Ellie, ends up spitting in Tulip's face, and it's yeah, I hope my dad kills you. It's woo! Apparently, because it's we welcomed you, we're doing it, family and everything, which I guess we find later on in the episode, we find out what that means exactly. It's the welcoming in family, he meant that literally as you married him, which kind of puts into question of even that whole thing at the end where Jesse's wait, what? Jesse came in strolling like a badass. I was oh snap, Jesse knows now. And it's he shows at the front door. I halfway expected him to be kicking everybody's ass, but it's really don't need to do that. We got Genesis yo, let me in. Sit down, don't go anywhere. Don't even bother. And then he ends up fighting that dude Pat, mainly because that dude was oh yeah, he blares music when he's torturing people, so he doesn't hear the voices because it gets to him. So worst opponent for Jesse to go up to. I mean, luckily for Jesse, he can still fight too. Pretty sick fight as well. I normally don't bring up stuff like this, but I also like the camera aspect of kind of being a little disorientating, the fight is a little bit. I just thought that was kind of a nice touch. I don't know if he's dead. I mean, he got stabbed, but I also appreciate that the body that's hanging up kind of played a part in the fight too, is getting slashed and stabbed through with that poker that Jesse used. So I don't know if the dude's dead or not. So, I mean, to me, if it was me, I guess in the heat of battle, he was maybe trying to aim for, I would have immediately just grabbed for the headphones, but it's that's the last thing he did to find out where Tulip was. But it's that's gotta be, you went through so much, you went strolling in like a badass, this shows how, because obviously throughout the episode, it makes you think, man, you're just a terrible boyfriend, because Cassidy's trying to, work around, he's oh, man, you should call Tulip, it's nah, Tulip disappears all the time, I shouldn't worry about it, it's oh, man, Tulip, oh, she's gone a while, mate, you check up on her and everything, it's he's still caught up in everything else with the whole God thing, which I'll get to a little bit later on, but it's I get, because Jesse's in the moment, he's I'm missing something, and you have Cassidy being of course, yeah, yeah, of course you are. So to me, I think it's because Cassie's looking at him as you're such a. I mean, I'm sure Cassie wouldn't outright say this, and maybe this is what he's thinking. But if you think about it too much, it's Cassie's looking at him as you're such a shitty boyfriend, not worried about your girlfriend being off on her own and stuff like that. Which is once again, he kind of uses it it's Tulip, dude. Tulip's a badass. She don't need me to know everywhere she goes. We're in a fight. She's pissed at me. She went off. It's okay. She's probably off stealing or robbing somebody right now. But it's I'm sure Cassie's oh, you're such an inconsiderate boyfriend. You should be worried about your girlfriend. I'm sure how Cassidy feels about Tulip kind of plays a role in that, but still, that's why it's poor Cassidy. It's almost it's, I said, probably not outright thinking it, but you can read between the lines. Only if I was, because even he was oh, if I had a girl like Tulip, I'd be worried. He was well, you wouldn't be, because, once again, aforementioned her being a badass and everything. Tula can kind of take care of herself and everything. So, but it's like after all that, Jesse found out you're in trouble, strolling like a badass, finding out you're married. Especially after the whole thing of like, oh yeah, like, because I think for Jesse too, it's going to also be kind of a kick in the nuts, because it's like, for one, there's that whole thing in season 1 where us trying to get back together and everything. Then there's this whole situation now, I'm like asking you to marry me and you're like, no. And it's like, now I know why you said no, because legally you can't get married, and you wouldn't admit to me that you're already married, and it would have complicated things, because it's like, oh, you're having this intimate relationship and you're already married. Once again, we'll probably get even more complicated when he finds out it's like, oh, you had sex with Cassidy. I'm sure that's not going to bode over well. On top of, like, if that kind of came up, and it makes you wonder, will that kind of come up in the mix? Will Cassidy be like, okay, mate, since we're kind of out in the open, me and Tulip kind of slept together. Wait, what? Well, yeah, it was before I found out she was, quote unquote, your Tulip, you know, and you were her boyfriend that she was all, you know, in town trying to get back with and everything, you know. So we just kind of wait and see. But it's like, maybe there's a part of her who is like, yeah, it's because of the whole Viktor situation. I guess technically I wasn't too far off with the whole like you being my property thing. Like no, in no shape or form am I being like, oh yeah, marriage is like a thing of being like, oh, once you're married, you're someone's property. But I just get the feeling like the way Viktor's acting, like I figure like, because he seems like kind of a mob boss dude. It seems like he might look at marriage that way. I mean, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he outright's like, you're my wife and you betrayed me. It's like, you made a fool of me. So I guess it's like, maybe they got married. It's like, oh, they dated, she's part of the family, and then they got married and she just bounced. I would assume she stole like a crap ton of money. Like, the question is like, how much time I mean, the way the dude back in, was that episode 2 was kind of making it seem like it's been a couple years since he's been looking for, Tulip. So maybe it's a situation of like, because I was wondering, is it like before she met up with Jesse again that led to that, or was there like time in between like her meeting up with Jesse? Like, was that like after the whole baby situation, the whole baby / Carlos situation, that her and Jesse went their separate ways? Was it during that time? Was it beforehand? It was just something she never admitted. I mean, that'd make it worse if it was actually before even that whole like them meeting up again, and just whatever the circumstances may be of like I said, that was something we still have never really covered, like between Tulip being taken off by child services because Jesse's dad called, to the whole being bank robbers and happy and stuff like that, being criminals and stuff. Like, we don't know what the time frame is, like when they got back into each other's life, and where this whole Viktor situation falls into that said fray. So I'm definitely very interested to see where that goes next episode. Like, that's crazy to me that's I was waiting for she's like, you can't kill him. I was like, don't tell me somewhere like he's your dad. It's like no, it makes matters worse, he's your husband. I think dad would have been better, but I mean, because we really don't even know that much about her family. We never actually got to see, well, her dad, I forgot her dad's dead, so I don't, like, I was thinking that it's like that's not even possible. Not even sure if her mom's still alive. Like I said, that last time, like, we heard about her family was in season 1, and she mentioned her mom being jailed when she was a little girl, so I don't know if her mom's still around or not. I mean, she did talk about her uncle being the only family she had left, so kind of alluding to the fact is that maybe they're all dead, or maybe that's kind of the fact is that her mom is in prison and stuff like that, you know. So, I mean, we just kind of have to see about that. But another side of the episode is kind of looking into the Mark. That's the name of the actor who played God back in season 1. Interestingly enough, I thought was fascinating, he's actually legitimately an actor. I'm like, oh, did he come down to earth and just was like doing the acting thing? Because he was in that commercial with Frankie Muniz. I saw his name in the credits, so I was at the beginning, I was like, Frankie Muniz, like, who is he playing this episode? Oh, he's playing himself in a kind of New Orleans commercial of like, oh yeah, I'm not homeless and stuff like that, but let's not forget about New Orleans. Kind of like that was just like, okay, because I was looking at the commercial, I was like, this is kind of a shitty commercial, isn't it? Like, in the sense of, like, the message it's trying to get across or something like that. It was just like, it was just kind of a shitty approach to it, and I was like, oh, it's because it's supposed to be. At least, I mean, I'm looking at it looking like that was kind of a shitty approach to being like, yeah, don't forget about New Orleans, you know, after everything it kind of went through. Katrina and everything. But lo and behold, he's just playing himself, and the guy is an actor. I love that whole conversation with his agent Teddy, and it's just like, yeah, and then Cassie throws in, it's like, oh yeah, we get him on Game of Thrones. Like, so what kind of role are we talking about? He's like, recurring, possible, regular. I'm like, Cassie, you're such a conniving bastard. I love you for coming up with some BS like that. even got into the whole conversation to pay. It's like, what do you expect? We don't, like, even Dinklage doesn't fly like first class or something like that. And it's like, really? It's like, yeah. Like, I think it was like first class or private or something like that. Nevertheless, it turns out, I love the fact is that we actually got to see Mark's audition for God, saying some of the stuff he said in season 1. And the fact is they had that extra line at the end with all like, oh, you'll know the signs of when shit goes down, shorter days, the darkness comes out more, the sky falls, stuff like that. I'm like, is that supposed to be kind of alluding? I mean, I would assume that's kind of alluding to the apocalypse. So is that supposed to be something that's going to pop? Is that them foreshadowing for the rest of the season? Or is that supposed to kind of, I mean, I'm not sure it's kind of like representing like, oh, God is powerful and almighty, and it's like the end, here are the signs of the end type of thing, and trying to scare you. Because even Mark's like, I don't know if he'd kind of be all wrath, because even you playing up the whole angry wrath angle, he was kind of like, I'm not sure about that. I was like, I was like, that's kind of interesting that they outright just got a human dude to do this. And I was like, oh. And then, he got shot, and I was like, oh, you're right. To get to heaven, I guess a human just can't really go to heaven. So they had to kill him so he'd be an angel so they can do it himself. I mean, granted, we haven't seen Mark subsequently since, but now it's like, well, that makes sense why his agent hasn't seen him, because Mark's dead in heaven. And I mean, there's a whole like coming back to Earth thing, but it's like probably after he screwed up with the whole like thing at the end of last season, it's kind of like, he's probably locked up somewhere because he let the beans spill about, well, God being missing and everything. So. And then Jesse kept pointing out, once again, like I brought it up earlier, like he was missing something. And the fact is, it had to be something about the person holding the gun. So is it someone that he knows or something? I literally forgot her name. It was like, is it Lana or Lena? The singer he met last episode. Like, part of me, my brain is going like, is that supposed to be her? Like, cause he's like, oh, there's something missing. And the person we know doing the recording for that, doing the audition is a lady, and I'm like, I just get the feeling, because he's like, there's something there. If I could zoom in, it's like maybe he was seeing something on her hand that reminded him of like the person that was holding the gun. So it's like, maybe that's supposed to be her. I mean, this whole like, but then that wouldn't explain the whole situation of like, I mean, you don't think that's the twist to it, is it? Like that this like group in all white are actually angels? Maybe that's going to be the twist on who they are. Maybe they're not regular humans. For them to know about God missing and stuff like that, wanting world domination, like maybe they're kind of a rogue group of angels, and maybe they set that whole situation in motion. So was that a heaven thing, or was that some people within heaven trying to do that? It's like, I mean, because most of heaven doesn't know about God, because it's like, oh, like who, because even Mark was like, who's this message directed to? Who should I be playing this towards? It's like, to anyone, basically like basically anyone who needs reassurance. So I'm guessing he's talking about heaven. They were talking about heaven in general, as well as people on earth that might contact, whatever the case may be. So that's definitely kind of interesting. So I'm wondering if that's going to be what the thing is. It's like I said, I think her name was Lena. Oh, me, I'm terrible with names and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, is that going to be the thing? I mean, maybe it's something else, but it just seemed like there was something specific about that video, and pausing on the gun coming up and seeing the person's hand, that just seemed like it caught Jesse's attention. He's like, I'm missing something obvious, but maybe that was just them alluding to the whole tulip situation. Nevertheless, also appreciate that the bartender dude that's a part of the group is, you can believe about Malcolm Barrett, is like posted up outside of Dennis's place, still speaking, wasn't it French? Still have no idea what the hell he's saying. He's talking to Cassidy. Once again, it still seems like he doesn't like Cassidy. I threw out some thoughts about that last episode. I'm sure they're 100% bullshit, but I mean, we'll just kind of see. I'm very curious. Is that just going to be a running gag for the rest of the time they're in New Orleans? Like, yeah, this is that. It's like, also, we saw at the end that the Cowboy is closing in, so they got to hurry the hell up. So. And finally, we kind of got a little bit of more of a look in hell with Eugene. That whole situation is interesting, because it's like, oh yeah, like the only person he's quote unquote friends with is Hitler. It's like, out of anyone in hell, you could get friendly with Hitler. I mean, Hitler is, I mean, even Eugene has a conversation with Lane like, oh, you don't seem that bad anymore. It's like, really? It's like, I mean, granted, that might just be part of Eugene just kind of looking at the best in people, but it's like, man. But dude, come on, it's Hitler. Come on, dude. It's like, wow. But it seemed like he's legitimately being nice to Eugene. He even looked out for Eugene, because there was that douchebag Tyler, like kind of poking fun at Eugene and everything. We even got a peek a little bit into Hitler's hell, and obviously it's based on the worst memory, and his worst memory is in Munich of 1919, and there's this Jewish dude that bumps into him, and it seems like there might be a problem, but he's like, oh no, it's okay. So it's like, okay. So I guess it's kind of like, I wonder, like, are they going to do the fucked up thing and make it so, like, yeah, make you not, I don't want to even utter the words. Why? Because someone will take it out of context and try to fuck me over with it. But nonetheless, it's like, is this show going to twist it around and be like, oh, you have to feel a little sympathetic towards Hitler, but it's Hitler. He doesn't deny doing all the terrible things he's done. He's like, oh, I did those. Like, it does seem like he's remorseful about it. But, like that memory, it's like his girlfriend and or wife, lady friend, whatever the case may be, she's kind of like, oh, this damn communist. And he's like, oh, yeah, you know, whatever. And she's like, what, you're not that bad about the communists? Oh, he's like, oh, yeah, of course. Germany, yeah, Germany. So it's like, it seems like it's a situation of like, they might be alluding to the fact that a lot of his beliefs and stuff like that weren't necessarily his own. They were just people around. I mean, it's like, why that specific moment? A 1919 in Munich. What went down then? Maybe that's something historically that actually happened. I'm not going to look into it because it's like, because I'm most likely looking at it and thinking like, that's probably something for the TV show specifically. But it's like, what went down there specifically to make that his worst memory? Because even Eugene's like, what the hell? Which is kind of interesting, kind of alluding to the fact that you can join in someone else's memory. Obviously, it's a memory, so you can't interfere with it anyway. I mean, that's the whole point of hell. You can't change or do anything. But it's like, you know, Eugene's there as an observer. He's kind of like, wait, that was your worst memory? Granted, it got cut out, so. And there's also that whole situation, too, of, like, why everything's screwing up in hell. Like, the projectors are messing up. And the fact is, there's that guy who's fixing the projector, kind of had a shady look on his face. I'm like, okay, someone's kind of doing this on purpose. I even love the lady that runs hell, kind of the warden. I also appreciate the effect of, like, sometimes when she talks, her voice kind of gets deeper. I don't know whether she's supposed to be, like, the devil. I don't think so. She's probably, like, she's low-tier warden. She's like, yeah, this sector... I mean, because it's like hell, you know, is constructed, it's underfunded, overcrowded, and stuff like that. She's looking at Eugene. It's like, oh, you sound like. It seems like I'm looking through your memories. Looking through your version of hell. It's like, oh, you seem like such an honest and loyal boy. Yeah, cut that shit out. We don't need that here in hell. We'll be keeping our eye on you because if you fuck up, we're gonna put you in the pit. You think your memories suck? Oh boy, that hole is gonna be a whole thing on its own. So that's kind of something Eugene kind of takes into mind, because later on he's kind of sticking up for Hitler because Hitler stood up for him and kind of gets his ass kicked. Mainly because he's not fighting back. And there's a moment that Eugene kind of stops them, and then he kind of looks towards the camera. It's like they're watching and stuff like that. So I can't be my goody two-shoes self. And you even have Hitler kind of smiling, and then Eugene proceeds to join in the beatings. I guess this is supposed to represent, the fact of the matter is that Eugene trying to... Obviously, he can't be the person that he is, the very good-natured person that he is. I mean, obviously, we've learned, like, obviously, we had our thoughts about him in season 1, but it turns out, like, no, like, what went down is very different. Like I said, I threw it at this last episode being like, oh, maybe there's a possibility of, like, maybe it's just like, oh, this is the way Eugene remembers, but it's like, no, like, it seems like that's 100% what went down, which kind of makes the whole situation that much sadder, because it's like he's blamed for doing that to Tracy, when in actuality, it's just... She did it to, obviously being what it is. So, like I said, because it sucks. Because I feel like, once again, I kind of brought this up last episode. It's like, shouldn't there be something going on? I mean, I guess when you get sent to hell, there's no like, oh, how did you get to hell? I mean, I guess they don't really look into your backstory. It's like, oh, you got sent to hell. You must have. Oh, yeah, you did something shitty. But it's like, even looking at Eugene's whole situation, it's like his worst memory. It's like, can you really? I guess no matter how much of a terrible person you are, maybe your worst memory is you're up to you. It's not really up to hell to decide what's your worst memory. So, but it's like, shouldn't there be like a catalog being like, oh, Eugene, you got sent to hell by other means. Oh, you didn't actually die. So how'd you get here? Yeah, my preacher told me to go to hell, so I went to hell. I don't know. Like, I feel like there'd be some guidelines there, because like I said, he's literally like 1 or 2 doors down from Hitler. How does that happen? I mean, how do you judge where people are in the whole jail system too? Like, I mean, we don't know what everyone else did. And also, wasn't one of the people in the jails a caveman? Because he kept pointing at TV, and the guy was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And there's a TV screen with fire on it. It's like, so, okay. I mean, I shouldn't be too surprised. You know, hell's definitely been around for a very long time. But to the point of caveman is in jail. I mean, in hell. I said jail. Well, jail, hell, whatever the case may be. So. But it seems like this is definitely going to be a situation of like, because I'm not familiar with Eugene's character in the comic books. I'm familiar with the art, like the character art's face in the sense of the name. I've seen pictures of the character, but I don't really know the character. But I'm guessing this is going to be where Eugene's character kind of does like a 180, whereas that kind, sweet boy turns into a very different person. Obviously, because he needs to become something else to be in hell, and maybe when the time comes for him to leave hell, it won't. I don't know. Like I said, I get it because like definitely some things are going on with the like because it's only in this specific block that stuff is going wrong with the projections and stuff like that. Because interestingly enough, like the projections only like your room will stay locked as long as the projection is going on. And the moment the projection stops, obviously that's when your door opens. Like I said, with the shady dude fixing the projectors, just that look on his eye makes me think like someone's got a plan. Maybe it's someone's plan that busts out. I don't know. All speculation. Like I said, a very good episode. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. See whether any of my thoughts or speculations about things come true or not. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.